Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with that. I welcome all of you tonight. I apologize for the tardiness, but we were in executive session discussing some items, and now we're here so we can get started with our board meeting. With that being said, I will ask that Ms. Glenda Marson-Fair lead us in prayer, and if we can, may we all stand.
Thank you. Let us pray. Dear God, tonight we express the gratitude we feel for giving each of us the opportunity to make a difference in the life of a child. Continue to guide and direct each decision throughout this school year as we continue to advance public education and model positive leadership throughout this community. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing. I would like to ask Zuri to come to the podium. And let me just tell you a little bit about Zuri. Zuri is a fifth grader at Mitchell Road Elementary School. Even though she's been at Mitchell Road only 2 years, Zuri has already become a leader for her peers. She serves as a newspaper reporter for the school's news show, bringing poise and clarity to the entire school audience. Zuri also looks for ways to show kindness to others, and she is a model student ambassador for Mitchell Road's new Capturing Kids' Hearts program. Zuri, would you be so kind in leading us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Zuri, if you will stay where you are, and let me bring your parents, because we want Mitchell Road Elementary to be very happy. We want them to see a picture of this. Come on up here, Mr. Royster. Dr. Royster, if you could be in this picture as well. Mom, brothers and sister, superintendent, and we can Photoshop your dad. I just heard her say your dad's going to be disappointed. Okay, and we're going to get you right here, and you want to come in. All right.
1, 2, 3, right there. 1, 2, 3.
All right, Zuri.
Thank you.
Good luck in school, and if y'all need anything, you come see Dr. Royster. Very nice. Okay. Okay, so that was 1.01. We will now move to adoption of consent calendar.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any questions? Hearing no questions, all in favor, please address by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries, and the consent calendar has been approved. Thank you. 3.01, appearance of visitors. There are no visitors tonight, so we will move on. But before we do, I'd like to thank Ms. Bush for her beautiful flowers, as she always keeps us in style every month. And I'd like to thank Billy Bush as well, because he comes in. Well, thank you, Ms. Bush, and I always stop to smell the roses, and every time I do, I think of you. Thank you so much. 4.0, Dr. Royster, Superintendent's Report.
Very briefly, I don't have a regular superintendent's report tonight, but I do want to make some introductions of personnel that were approved earlier, in fact, before school started, but for different reasons were not able to be with us to stand and be recognized so that you might see them. Some of you have by now already met them. But we do have with us tonight V. Popat, the director of the Fine Arts Center. V. And beside him, coming to us, having previously served as a middle school principal with it, but also with a background in jazz as well. And he's already hit the ground running and has been at the Fine Arts Center since July. And we also want to recognize tonight our newly appointed Assistant Director of the Fine Arts Center, Casey Cotter. Welcome to both of you. Congratulations on your new role. Both of them are new to Greenville County Schools, and we're glad to have you here and look forward to your leadership at the Fine Arts Center. We also have an assistant principal at Tanglewood Middle School, Damon Officer. I believe I see him back there. Damon? We'll come up and get your picture. We welcome Damon back to the district, who's with us before and left, and we are now delighted to have him back in a leadership role at Tanglewood Middle School.
Oh, good. Okay, so I just want you to know that we're excited about the Fine Arts Center, as we are Tanglewood. But let me just brag that you will see me downtown, just with a group of students in various areas downtown, just strumming and playing and getting the kids involved wherever he goes. They're everywhere. He's everywhere. He is such an advocate for our Fine Arts Center, and I am just so excited and appreciative, and thank you all three for being here tonight. I'll be over there within the next week to see y'all, okay? Thank you so much, B. All right, Section 5.0, South Carolina Champions for Education Award nomination. Okay. Let me see where we are. 4.1. I do not have that. Do you have that one, Lisa? Okay, so the recommended motion from the Committee of the Whole is to approve the nomination of First Presbyterian Church for the South Carolina School Board Association's Champions for Public Education Award. Coming from the Committee of the Whole, it needs no second, but are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please address by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries, and the nomination for First Presbyterian Church for the South Carolina School Board Champions for Public Education Award has been passed. Thank you. 5.02, property for Fort Shoals School.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a motion that we defer this item to the Committee of the Whole so that we could get a little bit more information about the appraisals.
Okay. Is there a second? Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, there is no second. Yes, Ms. Wells?
There's an October 8th special call meeting that I think the intent
Yeah.
is to defer to the special call meeting on October 8th.
Thank you.
As opposed to the committee of the whole.
Yes.
So
we
what
make
is your
that-
motion?
I would like to defer the item to the special called meeting on October 8th in order to get more information about the value and the appraisals.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Any questions?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Meek.
after we reviewed this at length in executive session, I really see no reason to defer it. I think the outcome will be the same, and I don't think I'll say any more on it, but I'll vote in a negative on this motion.
So, okay, any discussion? Any further discussion? Ms. Dr. Ball O'Connor.
I had hoped that we would have the discussion after getting a little bit more information, but if that is not clear, then I would like to specify further what my concerns are. And in particular, we have two different appraisals that are very dissimilar.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
We're
sir,
getting close
Mr.
to
Meek.
executive session content.
Okay, do I have a motion to go into executive session?
No.
Just go into executive
No,
session?
ma'am, no. My
No.
comment was we're getting close to executive session
Oh, okay.
I
content.
agree.
Okay, so Dr. Ball-O'Connor, can you,
I was trying not to. Let's see. I believe that we established that there are many unanswered questions for some of us, and I would respectfully ask my colleagues, since we are well within our time limits without extending anything that causes any negative result, if there are several of us that would like to add some additional information in order to be comfortable with the values that we are talking about for this potential transaction, that we be given the courtesy to get that additional information. Otherwise, I would have to vote against this altogether. Thank you.
okay, any other discussion? All right, we will vote on the motion to defer this item
Roll call.
until the special call meeting October 8th in order to get more information about the appraisals. Roll call.
Mrs. Bush? Yes. Mr. Shanley?
No.
Ms. Goodman Caldwell? Yes. Mr. Lewis?
No.
Mr. Meek?
No.
Mrs. Morrison Fair? Yes. Dr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Saylor?
No.
Mr. Sutter?
No.
Mrs. Wells? Yes. Mrs. Dennis?
No.
Six, five, no.
6-5 no, the motion fails.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I wish to make a motion.
Wait a minute, is that 6 of us? Is that,
Six,
that's
five.
11?
But
Oh,
that,
Joy's not here.
so
Okay.
it's just
Okay.
Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Meek.
I wish to make a motion to approve the purchase of 24.956 acres as depicted in the survey dated July the 1st, 2019 for Fork Shoals School.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a second by Mr. Saylors. Any discussion? Ms. Dr. Ball-O'Connor.
yes, I am not comfortable with this as, which is difficult to avoid executive session content. So please feel free to call me out if I get there. I'm not intending to do that, but I think if we're going to have a discussion about it, and some of us were not comfortable with the numbers that we got and didn't feel that the appraisals had taken into account all relevant information. And then other board members are going to say, well, let's go ahead and buy it anyway without that information that would have made several of us more comfortable. Then I think it's only fair to state the reasons that for the discomfort. And that is that we have a lease for 18 more years that we would like more information about the effects on that lease
Madam
on the
Chairman,
appraisal.
Yes, sir.
I think we're getting into executive session more than we need to be.
You don't think
If
so?
we need to do that, we need to do an executive session.
Why is that executive session?
I'm going to refer to the council.
I believe the lease is public knowledge. I believe the reference to that is okay, but more detail I would be concerned about
Okay.
beyond that.
So that it is about that we did not feel that appropriate consideration had been given. So because of that, I will vote no on this, but I would be comfortable first offering a substitute motion, which is that given that we have two appraisals that were significantly different from one another, am I able to say by how much?
No.
Okay, significantly different from one another. I would not be comfortable paying anything more than the higher of the two appraisals obtained by the district. I still think that is a very...
This is a motion.
Yes.
So you're adding more to this?
No,
or
I'm
is
sorry.
that
I'm just
your
making the
motion?
motion. You're right. You
Okay.
did not ask me to discuss my motion. Apologize.
Um,
So the motion would be, instead of accepting
The substitute motion.
the substitute motion, instead of accepting the price as is, that the price would not be anything greater than the higher of the two appraisals obtained by the district.
Okay. Is there a second?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir?
There's a motion and a second
you
now.
asked Mr. Webb, but I'm not sure that's a substitute motion, more like an amendment to it.
I'd be okay with whatever.
Amendment to your motion?
Amendment to my motion. It seems more like that's what it should be, but Mr. Webb's the parliamentarian, not me.
I'm not feeling that, but go ahead, Doug. Mr. Webb?
Yeah, I think the question is how closely aligned would this motion be to the original motion? And I think it's right in the middle. I think I could live with a substitute motion.
Okay.
Substitute motion. So now, is there a second to the substitute motion?
Ms. Goodwin-Caldwell.
Ms. Goodwin-Caldwell? Any discussion on the substitute motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr.
May I
Ball-O'Connor?
speak to the substitute? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Again, without the benefit of further clarification that would have given us what I consider a more thorough, accurate, and fair understanding of the value, had we focused on the current commitment of 18 more years for the lease that we already have, then I would say the only way I could get comfortable supporting this is that, given we have two dramatically different appraisals, I'd be glad to accept the highest one, which is, by everyone's understanding, much higher than the other appraisal. But because of that discrepancy and not having full information about the effects on the appraisal that the lease for 18 years may have, I would not be comfortable paying more than the higher of the two appraised values that we got, which I still think is a very generous price under the circumstances.
Thank you. Mr. Shamley?
Yeah, I would say that in response, ordinarily, all things being equal, if there was nothing else out there, you would say naturally that you would want to pay the lowest appraisal that you could get for the property. But I think we also have to take into consideration that there's another appraisal out there. There's a third appraisal. And that's the appraisal of our staff that has looked at this and determined that this is a fair value for this property based on future events, based on everything that is taken into account, and to some extent even based on the existing lease, which is probably worth somewhere in the time value of money of today, somewhere in the range of $50,000, $60,000, whatever. Bottom line is, for $20,000 difference between the two, I can get comfortable with that if our building folks think that's a fair price for us based on what we anticipate we may need in the future, and additionally based on what the value of this property may be in the future if we seek to purchase it later. So with that in mind, I would suggest that we stick with the original motion and go. It's just $20,000 difference. I mean, I don't know that we need to, burn the house down for a $20,000 difference. Granted, that's $20,000, but I think based on everything that I've been able to hear, based on the fact that we have to have this property part of it for at least 18 years and may well need it well beyond that, at which time, if you take into consideration the increase in values of property, I suspect we're doing okay at the price that we've been quoted at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Shamley. Okay. Next, I have Mrs. Michelle Goodwin-Caldwell.
Yes, I agree with Crystal, with all things being considered, and that they didn't have all of the information about the lease being on there and the wetlands on the property. I think that we do need more information before we approve this, this purchase. I agree with Cristobal O'Connor that we need more information in order for us to approve this purchase using public funds. You don't want to pay over premium. You want to go with what the appraiser says. So I agree with Dr. Cristobal O'Connor that I need more information in order for me to be comfortable with us purchasing this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin-Caldwell. Ms. Wells?
Yes, I think we tried our best to talk about this and come to some conclusion in executive session, and I guess maybe we should spend a few more minutes or kind of go back in. But I have a couple of other questions that are related, but I think they're public information. What's the current dollar amount we have in our long-range facility, our capital budget for property acquisition right now?
Ms. Stack look for that, but I believe it's about, generally speaking, it's around a $1.5 million line item.
And what are the other properties, what other schools are we thinking we're going to need property for? So that where we know that we need to, because we set aside that money, do we typically have a list of targeted areas we need to purchase?
Right now, the foreseeable future long-range facility plan, I don't think through the 2021 year there is, at least at this point, a site acquisition need. Ms. Farley?
Dr. Worcester, that's true right now. There are several areas we are studying, but right now there is not, through that time frame, Dr. Worcester is mentioned an acquisition plan.
Okay, so if I think of this in terms of assigned and unassigned fund balance, if you will, for lack of a better word, we right now don't have other things targeted and other money that feel like we need to carve and set aside for anything more pressing.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So Fort Shoals expansion, when is that on the facilities plan to be expanded?
Robert, do you have a financial spreadsheet pulled up? You may be able to find it quicker by looking on there.
You're right, yeah. And I guess I'm just trying to get to this wasn't on my radar, so to speak, I guess, until this item was put on the agenda. So I'm trying to make sure I have all the understanding that I need to make a decision.
I almost hate to venture a guess, but I was thinking 2023 or 24, but that might be off.
It's to be completed in the fall or spring of 26
I'm sorry, spring of 26 for completion.
For the coming fall,
Completion in 26, occupancy fall of 26.
27.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
So we're looking 5 years out for the expansion. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah. That'd probably line up with probably construction start 5 years.
Okay. Well, I too have some concerns with some of the unknowns. I know the real estate market's a little bit crazy. I would have liked to have had more readily available answers to some of the questions we asked, but maybe that's just a bump in the road and a lesson learned. I don't know that I think it's hard to say whether or not properties are going for just appraised value right now. But I'm supportive of Dr. O'Connor and her concerns about wanting more time and needing more information. So, it's kind of a conundrum. I don't believe that this board should be put in a position to not be able to get their answers to the questions that they have. And I think generally the administration always is very sensitive to that. And I think they were in this case too. So I guess I'll hear more discussion and figure out what I want to do there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Mr. Sailors.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have listened to the conversation and feel very confident in the information that's been presented, and I have full faith in the administration. So I feel that the direction that this recommendation is solid. I would like to know, Dr. Royster, if I could, the last several pieces of property that we have purchased, have they all been underappraised, above appraised? Can you share with us if this action is outside the norm of how we normally handle our property acquisitions?
It is in line with some of the property we've acquired. The most recent, I believe if I recall correctly, the most recent piece of property we acquired related to the Fountain Inn site was acquired above the appraised value. We have in some instances been able to acquire property slightly below the appraised value. We try to stay, as you all know, particularly board members have been on the board for a good while, that whether it's acquisition of property or sale of property, we try to stay within a reasonable distance of the appraised value. Unfortunately, in this case, there was a fairly wide variance in the appraisals we received, and I think that entirely has to do with the comps that were utilized by the different appraisers. I think the point's already been made that this particular piece of property, we'd have actually over the next 18 years about $100,000 expense going forward in the lease. So I think you take that into account. You take into account to the point earlier made about the expansion of Fort Shoals in the construction 23, 24 to 26 time frame. It provides some other options as to the expansion of the building. Taking into account all those things, also realizing there's a small section of this property, about 4 acres of the 25, that pretty restricted in its use because it has our septic field on it right now and a long-term lease on that. We believe that all things considered, it's in the best interest of the district to proceed with the acquisition. Whether the board needs or desires additional information or not, it would still be our recommendation that we move forward with the acquisition of the property, whether that's after additional information or without additional information. We think it's in the best interest of the district to purchase the property while it's offered to us for sale by the current owner.
If the current owner cannot meet a resolution with us, they have stated that they would be more than willing to go elsewhere?
Yes, sir. I think they made it very clear their intent is to develop the property.
So let's pretend for a moment they do sell it to someone else, and there's roughly 20 acres, if you will, that could be developed.
Yes, sir.
And then let's go to 2025 and we need more land to expand this school. We're either going to be held hostage then to hypothetically, a higher price per acre then, because a new owner wants to appreciate their investment, or that land could have hypothetically been developed, and if we need more than 4 acres, which we're currently using, there's not going to be the land to purchase. Those are two potential issues.
Yes, sir. The most worrisome would be the need to expand the septic field if we add on to the building, even if we stay within the current footprint of our existing property.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Meek.
Thank you. Let me see how to correctly word this. Dr. Royster, we have a lease for that 4 acres for the next 18 years, how much are we paying per year for that lease?
Mr. Webb, is 5,000 some odd dollars?
5,277, I believe.
With an inflation indexed escalator per year.
So over the next 18 years, that'd be about how much money?
About $90,000 to $95,000 estimate.
That we will be paying out anyway. Is that
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so looking at that and looking at the price, the asking price, if we take that $90-some thousand off of that, then that makes the property very cheap, way under the lowest estimate that we have received. And we're going to be spending that regardless.
Without acquiring the property, yes, sir.
What does that mean?
Okay.
Without acquiring?
We wouldn't own the
When
property.
I had looked at this property, I too had great concern that maybe we were paying too much for this property. So I took it up on myself yesterday to go to Fort Shows Elementary and to walk this property with my little sidekick. And we looked, and the property is much better than what I had thought it was from just the visits to Fort Show. The property, to me, is probably much valued, and I think that, I'm not a real estate appraisal, I'm not a real estate agent, but I have bought a few properties in my life, and I know that when a seller tells you, this is my price, I'm not taking a dime less, then that either you take the property or you walk. And so I think that is our decision tonight. We either take what that property is being offered to us for, or we walk away from it and we let the future boards suffer the consequences when we know we're going to expand that building. We know we're going to use part of that property. We may use all of it. I know the property out back can be used greatly for sports or whatever those students at the elementary school may want to use that. If my math is close to right, and someone referred to it earlier, I think it's only, or is, maybe $500 an acre difference. I've sat on this board for 25 years, and I know we have paid tremendous tremendous prices for property that was way over the appraisal, because we were either accept what the seller was requesting or we were going to walk. And I think wisely we have, in most instances, have accepted that offer, and we have come out ahead many, many times. So I cannot vote for this substitute motion as it's stated either.
I'll look briefly at those numbers, Mr. Meek, to your earlier point. It does, in fact, when you consider we would not make that 18-year payment, it actually brings the amount below the lowest appraised value.
Thank you.
If you deduct out that amount without adjusting for inflation.
Ms. Wells.
Thank you. Another question related to the facility. Did we project that we were going to need to purchase additional land for the Fort Shoals addition? Is that included in the facilities plan? Or, I know they came,
At this point, I don't believe there's any projection for the purchase of additional property, particularly related to that expansion. But we ended up, as you may recall, most recently, we purchased some additional property for the Summit Drive expansion beyond what we originally anticipated, really having primarily to do with traffic flow around the school. And after the design firm looked at it and SCDOT weighed in, we believed that we could, by purchasing that additional piece of property, better direct the flow of traffic for the new addition. So that always can happen in any expansion, that there might be the need
after we engage an A&E firm to perhaps acquire some additional property.
Okay, but as part of this process, we didn't do any preliminary layout to look at any of that, right?
We did not. If there's one that currently exists, there might be, but we didn't do anything particularly related to this.
Okay.
You're correct.
So if this property, in terms of what's usable, is substantially reduced because of whether it's utility easements or whether it's wetlands impacts, do we feel confident that it still would provide the access that we need, that would provide that benefit for us? If you haven't done any layout and we haven't done any kind of delineation to look for environmental restrictions.
When you look at the layout of the property, the part that would be most conducive to our purposes, I believe, is a part far remote from those considerations.
Okay. Okay. And are there any other special conditions in the contract that we could talk about here with regard to the purchase? Or is when we make this, I guess I'm trying to figure out the next step, when we make this motion, we say, yes, that's all it has to be. There aren't any other things in play that need to happen, inspection-wise or permitting-wise or any due diligence kind of stuff? Is this?
Carlin.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other, Mr. Meek?
Said that so nicely. Dr. Royster, we recently purchased, and I've forgotten, some property over at Summit Drive.
Yes, sir.
How many acres did we purchase?
Ms. Fitzer, can you look that up in the record real quickly?
Well, my next question is, how much do we pay for that? How much acreage did we purchase at Summit Drive, and what did we pay for it?
It was 0.42 acres, and price was $197,000.
That was less than an acre. And I realize, and I've heard all my life, and I believe it, the three most important words to a realtor is location, location, and location. And although this was in the city, over at Summit Drive, I guess it's in the city, this is way out in the country. The property is the property. It is what it is. And that was the price. I don't know what the evaluation was, but that was a good chunk of cash that we paid for less than an acre. Thank you.
Dr. Ballentine.
Yeah, may I ask a question to Mr. Webb about what I'm allowed to say here?
Yes.
I would like to be able to say how much over, what percentage over the price we are preparing to pay as part of the explanation of why I think it's unfair that we're being pushed into this without being able to get a little bit more information. Is that okay to say?
You already said.
Yes.
No, the percentage.
Yeah, percentage would.
So I want to say that for me, it seems that
Over the highest percentage.
it is
Over the highest.
irresponsible of me if I don't know if I'm paying 41% over the appraised value or 8% over the appraised value, because we had two that were so far apart. And so in addition to that, we've talked about several things that we don't know if the appraisers took these very critical things into account, including those on the administration who looked at it regarding the 18-year lease. So I just want to say that I certainly, there is no implication that when you have questions as a trustee, that it means that you don't have full confidence in the administration. There's no question of that. The question is, I don't have full confidence in the information that I have, that it is sufficient information to expend taxpayer money, and that's the role that I have to play. So I just don't like not, sort of getting boxed in without being able to have a public discussion about why. These are not arbitrary gaps in information, but significant ones to some of us. So I'm offering a compromise of a way to go forward, but I think the right thing for me to do is just to vote no, because I don't have enough information. And I want to say to my colleagues that you never see me calling the question, because I believe that is a political tool to get people to stop making their voice heard. Some people use that tool. That's up to them. I don't use that because I believe I want every trustee to be able to say what they think and fully contribute to any discussion. And I felt like with many of us saying we don't have enough information, could we please wait for 2 more weeks? And now we've come out and had a motion to the contrary. It just feels like a squeeze that I'm not prepared to go without calling. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ball O'Connor. Yes, Mr. Meek.
I didn't call the question. I don't know who she's talking to. But anyway.
No, that's not what I'm...
Okay.
Please, no discussion. Just, Mr. Meek, you have the floor.
I was just going to say, that Fork Shows is in my area now.
Yes.
And I sort of feel obligated to make the point that, it's real difficult to express to, some of my constituents why this board would pay close to $200,000 for less than an acre when we're looking at paying.
Please do not disclose.
I shouldn't say the amount,
Thank you.
but paying
Thank you.
close to the same amount for 25 acres. I mean, that does not make logical sense. And believe me that I, along with most of the members, or all the members on this board, want to spend, and I think we do spend the taxpayers' monies very wisely. And I'm sorry that some board members don't have enough information to vote on this, but there's a lot of times I have to vote no because I don't feel that I have as much information to feel comfortable with it. And all I can say is vote your conscience tonight, and if the chips fall one way, then that's the way they fall. Thank you.
Yes, there's a substitute motion on the screen to approve the purchase of 24.956 acres, but not pay anything greater than the higher of the 2 appraisals obtained by the district. And I did that without my glasses. Mr. Lewis.
So just a clarifying question. So should the board vote no to this and this not pass, then we would revert back to the original motion.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Ms. Glenda Marson-Fair.
I would like also another clarification. If this motion passes, are we to assume that we will have additional information in order to make a decision whether or not we will pay anything greater than the higher of the 2 appraisals?
Mr. Webb may want to weigh in on that, but I would take that in the direction of the administration was to make an offer in that amount. That would be the offer.
Not to exceed the highest appraisal.
Okay, so that motion directs our realtors to go back and make a different offer.
That's right, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And let me clarify one thing. The question was asked earlier about amount remaining in the site budget. It's actually $760,000.
$769,000.
$760,000.
$60,000.
But let me.
That's correct, isn't it, Ron?
Yes, that is correct.
Mr. Webb.
And one way to interpret this motion, which I think is a reasonable way to do it, would be that you approve the purchase of this property, and if the administration is able to get the seller to sell the property for something at the highest appraisal or lower, then to move forward without even bringing it back for another board action. So that is something to consider and how to interpret this motion.
Yes. Mr. are you finished? Mr. Shamley? Is your mic on, please?
Mr. Webb, you can confirm, I'm trying not to, if I'm correct or not, but if this motion passes, we will have officially rejected the offer. They are then free to do anything they want to with the property. They may have another buyer out there ready to pay them that amount or more. We don't know. The only thing I'm saying is that there is at least that risk there. Am I correct? Or
It is possible.
Yeah, okay.
Ms. Bush?
Yeah, well, my concern with supporting this motion is that the information that we have asked for, we're basing it on what we're not sure is correct information.
I agree.
So we're back in the same position again because it could come back for the information significantly more where everybody would feel comfortable. And Dr. Royster had said he didn't have a problem that 2 weeks was not too long, but of course the barn door's already open, so we're already past that. So, but I don't think I can support this because I'm basically supporting it off of information that we're not sure, that we all have concerns about being such a wide range and what those factors were, whether certain factors were used in the which probably has something to do with why we had 2 such wide appraisals in there. So I don't think I'm going to be able to support this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Cristobal O'Connor.
Yes, may I ask a sort of a parliamentary question? Because I really agree with Ms. Bush. This is like second best hope. It's not a perfect situation. The perfect situation is to get the information we needed. Is there a way that this could be modified or, voted down and another substitute made, even though a version of that was voted down by only 1 vote? We've had more discussion. Perhaps if colleagues realize we're just simply trying to get the answers to the questions, is there a way that it could be, someone else could come in with a different motion that was a slight variation and it would still be a legitimate consideration?
I think it depends on how much of a variation, but I think it is important to remember that there was a vote on the first motion, which failed, and we're on this one now. So if something was brought that is substantially the same as the first one, then I would say it would be out of order, unless it was from someone who voted against it, who brings it, then that is a possibility.
As a move to reconsider.
As a move to reconsider.
Something significantly different.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve the purchase of the 24,956 acres, but not 24,000.956 acres, but not pay anything greater than the higher of the 2 appraisals obtained by the district.